We are one day away from Ohio State and Georgia playing in the college football playoff. Buckeye fans are excited. Georgia fans are excited. The college football world is excited. And I'm here to tell you there's a way the Buckeyes beat the Bulldogs tomorrow in the Peach Bowl to have a chance to play for the national championship.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, the last Friday in show in the year 2022. It's December 30th as well. And today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for your props, odds, and lines for all your sports betting needs. Sports betting will be live in Ohio this weekend, so BetOnline is your place to go. BetOnline, where the game starts. Jeff, December 30th, 2022, final show of the year, and I'm glad you're here with us once again. You heard the name. It's Jeff Hunt. He is one of my good friends, a guy who I love talking ball with, not just Buckeye football, but just football and sports in general. And Jeff Hunt, I'm glad you're with us once again here on Locked On Buckeyes, but not only that, but here to close out and here, which is the final show of the year.
Hey, it's been a pleasure, man. Glad to be. First of all, I'm glad to have the opportunity to talk about our Buckeyes in the playoffs. That's all I wish for all year. It's here. It's time. I know what the odds look like, but you got to be in the Final Four to have a chance. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful for you and Locked On Buckeyes for having me on. And Happy New Year to everybody out there.
Happy New Year to everybody. Many of us, actually probably all of us, will be fixated to our TVs. You may be out somewhere, but you'll still be having the game probably queued up on your phone or a TV or wherever you are to make sure you know what's going on with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Ohio State, Georgia. At the beginning of the season, these are two teams that I predicted that would be in the playoff. I did not think this would be the semifinal game that the Buckeyes would play. But here we are, Georgia, Ohio State, 4 versus 1 for a chance to play for the national championship. Jeff, it doesn't get much better than this.
No, this is crazy, man. Georgia was better and slightly more dominant in the important games this year than I thought. Obviously, I think we all can agree that Ohio State wasn't quite the team that we thought they were going to be. Quite a few more weaknesses than we expected coming into the year. There was a lot of ups and downs, bit of a roller coaster year. So these two teams are coming into this with completely different momentum. Obviously Ohio State losing the big game, not winning the Big Ten championship, sliding in because of, what they did before. And I'm good with that. And you got Georgia, who is rolling in, defending national championship, haven't lost since. Won every big game, rolled through the SEC title game. So we are talking about two teams going in completely different directions. But as you said before the show, they've each had like a month off. That's basically a reset, especially when you're talking about, 20, 21-year-old, football players. So we honestly, these teams have had time to completely revamp their defense or offense or whatever they thought they needed to. They may not even, each of them may not even look the same as they did when we saw them back in November, which kind of blows your mind.
Speaking of look the same and all the time that's been off for both teams, the Buckeyes' last game was November 26th. Georgia played a week later in the SEC championship. Both teams have had more than enough time to prepare for this game, and both teams are looking to be healthier, way healthier than they were the last time they played. This might be the healthiest Buckeye team we have seen this year. Even going into, since week one, since that game, there's been injuries. Players have been banged up all year long, from Njigba to Henderson to Williams to Mike Hall to Matt Jones. I mean, the injuries go on and on and on. And so this might be the healthiest team that you'll see from both sides. And I think it's a great thing. And think about how Ohio State can win this game Health is on their side. The time off has helped them be healthier. Yes, no Njigba, no Henderson. Njigba was expected. Henderson was not expected, but I understand you have to take care of your body, and this is the time that he feels like he needs to do that, to take time for his the torn ligaments in his foot to heal. I am so happy there's a healthy Mike Williams, and other players are getting healthy, because the Buckeyes will need a healthy team to beat Georgia on Saturday night.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that was the biggest thing all season. And it was always like, well, you have the talent to get through this game, and you can overlook it and overlook it. I mean, really, we can't do it now, but in a few years, we're going to look back on the story of the 22 season, and it's going to be Njigba. It's going to be Henderson. These are two guys that were in, I mean, honestly, Vegas had him in the Heisman race,
Yes.
Starting the year. And Njigba basically had no season. Henderson was hobbled or banged up, most of it. And so that was kind of the story of how it went. But now it doesn't matter. You got to reset. You got the freshman Hayden. Obviously, a lot of this load is going to be on his back. Mike Williams is a really good running back, but I don't know if he's the game breaker, that Ohio State's gonna need, like a Henderson would be. So we've got guys that we didn't think would be in this position with a lot of load on them. And then, of course, number one, first and foremost, CJ Stroud. This game is all about CJ Stroud.
Jeff, I was going to go somewhere else next, but you mentioned Stroud, and I can't even go any further without discussing the importance of this game, not just for him and Ohio State needing to win, but for his legacy as a whole. I understand he's saying, I don't have to play for anything. I don't have anything to prove. I get what he thinks. I even might understand where he's coming from. But, Jeff, he can change a lot of the narrative about him by playing phenomenal in this game. Think about 2020 Justin Fields. Think about what Fields did in that Clemson game, where he was 6 touchdowns, a big 56-yard touchdown to Chris Olave, and he was just locked in, ready to go. I don't know what they did when he got popped in his rib by James Skowski. He came back in through a touchdown pass. Next thing you know, Fields was like, hey, you lit a fire under me, and I'm going. I believe the Buckeyes need Stroud to play out of his mind. I mean, literally, the best game he's ever played, ever dreamed of. Video game-like numbers, or like play, maybe not numbers, but playing like it's a video game. Hey, I can do this. I can do that. Let me throw this wrinkle at you. Because the Buckeyes need QB1 to be QB1, to be the ultimate leader, to be Georgia. And I want to believe we can get that. I want to believe it, Jeff. I want to believe Stroud's going to play the best game he's ever played against Georgia, because his team needs him to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got to be his decision. It's got to be his work, and we've talked about it, till we're blue in the face. We understand how he's got here. We understand, how well he's done. We understand the numbers, all of these things. But we also understand the ceiling, the limitations, the frustrations that we've had, because we recognize his talent. In my notes, I said this has to be a game. Like the bottom line is, CJ has to move in this game. Like if he cannot stay, he's not going to be able to stand back there as a target against this Georgia defense. That is their bread and butter. They make the pocket dirty. They make the other QBs uncomfortable. Stroud, the game plan needs to be moved. I'm not sitting there saying run the Nebraska 95 option. Stroud's got to move the entire game. That it's got to be a mobile pocket. The O-line and Stroud together, like they've got to be able to move this pocket. They've got to be able to get him outside of it. He's got to make quick decisions. He's got to be able to make quick throws. If you told me he's going to throw 60 passes in this game, I would believe you, because he cannot hang onto the ball and wait for that home run. Because with these Georgia defenders, not only when they get to you, because they will, when they get there, they tackle and it's violent.
Yes.
I mean, and it's all, and I'm saying within the rules, but they're a physical, violent team. There's only so many of these a guy like Stroud can take. We're talking about a kid who basically didn't get hit his career at Ohio State, and so it's a completely different game. But I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he understands. If I know it, and Jay Stevens knows it, CJ Stroud knows it. Like, he can watch the tape. He's obviously a smart guy. You can't destroy defenses like he has for 2 years and not understand football. So if I got the tape and you got the tape, he knows what the deal is. What him and Ryan Day choose to do with that is, but he's definitely finishing the chapter of his Ohio State story with this game. And, I honestly hope that, it goes well for him, because I don't want it to be like a what if scenario for a guy that's been a record setter and won so many games at Ohio State.
Jeff, I want to challenge Locked on Buckeyes, actually Ohio State fans, really quickly with something to help this podcast. Now, everyone has goals. Buckeyes have a goal this weekend to beat Georgia, to play for a national championship. And at the time of this recording, Locked on Buckeyes, Jeff, is 5 subscriptions away from eclipsing the 2,000 subscription mark on YouTube. Everyone right now, if you're watching us on YouTube and you have not done so yet, hit that subscribe button. It's only going to benefit you and other great things we can do here on the podcast. Hit that subscribe button. Jeff will be on again in the future. Mo Murphy will be looking to get more people on the podcast. Of course, I'm still going to be here to provide the Buckeye analysis you love every single day. 1995, 1,995 subscriptions. That's where we're currently sitting. And Jeff, getting to 2,000, that's a great accomplishment. That's what I never thought would come this quickly into me hosting this podcast and having a YouTube page. But that's where we are. Challenge Ohio State fans right now. Be loud during the game on Saturday and help this podcast on YouTube eclipse the 2,000 subscription mark.
Absolutely. Reward Jay for his hard work and everything he does. That's an awesome accomplishment. There's thousands, there's millions of Buckeye fans out there. Give us some love so we can keep doing what we do.
Before we went on the CJ Stroud discussion and conversation, we discussed, or Jeff mentioned, game breakers. I can call them game wreckers, guys that Ohio State needs to play out of their mind in this game to allow Ohio State to win the game, because the game has not been played. And I'm telling you, I know what the spread is. We'll go over that here in a little bit, maybe towards the end of the show. I know what the over-under is. Ohio State can win this. And I know what the national narrative is about Ohio State this, Ohio State that. It's not like Ohio State is 21-point underdogs. They're not. It's not like that. Ohio State can win this game. And, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you. Who is one player, or what are players, one on offense, one on defense, that Ohio State needs to win? They need to be game breakers for them on Saturday.
Yeah, I know it's a cop-out. Like, I feel good. Like, I know the receivers. I know what we get from them. Stroud, I think I know what I get from him. It has to be the whole of the offensive line. And I know that's a cop-out to say all 5 of them. But it absolutely has to be them, because what Georgia does is they bring a lot of guys from different angles, and they just want to wreck the interior of your line, and they want to get your quarterback off center. And so CJ has to trust that line. So it's like when he sees it coming, he's going to see these guys coming at him. He's got to have faith that it's going to hold up. And we're talking about, in this offensive line, honestly, there's up to 5 NFL players on it. So the ability is there. We know how good the tackles are. We know how good, the center is. Everybody as a unit, they absolutely have to hold force. Like when I look at this game, I'm not one of these guys. It's like, hey, we got to grind it out. We got to slow it down. We got to clock manage. I don't think that can win at all. I think that the Buckeyes have to come out and be like, we need to score as many points, make Georgia score points. If we're going to lose this game, I would rather see us lose, 50-40 than I would 20-10. But if the offensive line can't hold up, it'll be over so early, because, we just don't have that running quarterback, or the guy that can freelance and playoff schedule. And the more comfortable CJ feels, the more, he can focus on what he does best, and that's hitting open receivers. And I do think the receivers can get open. These receivers can get open against anybody. Yeah. So I just got it written on there. The offensive line just has to play like monsters up there.
On offense, for me, I was going to go with an offensive line, men one singularly. But since you went there, I'm not.
Well, go ahead. Tell me the number one offensive lineman, though, because I don't see it like you do.
The center, Luke Whippler. Okay. I don't believe this game can be anything to where Ohio State can win if he's not, one, controlling the center of the offensive line.
Sure.
But communication across the board, tackle to tackle, tackle to tight end, whatever it is, tackle to H-back if you bring in Mitch Rossi. You got to find it. He has to be big. And I remember what he said last year after the Michigan loss, and how it stung him and how it fueled him. And I understand that people may say, well, it's hard to understand what the center does. That's probably that's an okay thing. Like, it's very, very hard to understand what goes on in the offensive line, because you don't hear them communicate, and they're not mic'd up during the game. If this is the NFL, you're going to get Stroud mic'd up, or Harrison Jr., or you might get a Lathan Ransom. You're not going to mic up a lineman. That does not get clicks. But I do believe, Jeff, for this game, Stroud staying upright, Harrison Jr., Abuka, Fleming, Stover getting the passes, Mayan Williams, Hayden, Chip Traynor, maybe even Xavier Johnson getting the carries. Luke Whippler has to be phenomenal at center. How do you slow down the big man, number 88, for Georgia's defense? That center has to be able to control things. Even if he's not blocking him every down, you have to be able to understand, like, hey, you got him, or communicate. If he does this, it's me. If he does that, it's you. He has to communicate.
Yeah.
So, yes, other places, and normally I was thinking let's go outside. This game is going to be won and lost with the interior of the offensive line for the Buckeyes. And I do think we talk about pressure from Stroud, pressure coming up the middle. If you want to keep him upright, Luke Whippler has to be phenomenal in his communication, not just his play, but communication for every single player, and realize if I communicate and we're all on the same page, we've all done our homework, we've all watched the same tape, this team can win this game. So you went collective as a unit, all five. I'm going one player singularly, the center, Luke Whippler.
I like it. I like it a lot. You're defining what, that's what I see as a unit, but I just don't have the eye for an offensive line like you do. So that's why I ask you. And that's exactly what I'm saying. And I agree. I agree with that. I love the modern center. I think it's the best, might be one of the most important positions in football right now. I know that's for another show, but I love where you're going with that. And I love your expertise on it.
On defense, Jeff, who do you believe needs to be a game breaker for Ohio State to win this game?
Oh, man. I mean, I want to take, the guys that we figure, out of the equation. I think Steel Chambers is going to be the target of Georgia.
Okay.
I think they kind of know what they're going to get out of everybody else, but that's the linebacker that it's like he's going to Bowers is going to be floating around. Like this dude is going to be out there floating around. They're going to try to get mismatches, on the linebackers, and if they can, I think they're going to consider Steel Chambers the weak link between the linebackers, him or Eichenberg or whatever, and they're going to get mismatches on him. So there's going to be, it may only be 3 times in a game, and it may be in the red zone. Chambers is eventually going to get matched up on a guy like Bowers or the other tight end. I forgot his name for Georgia.
Darnell Washington.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are absolutely freak athletes. At some point, it's just going to happen. Can Chambers hold up? Can he tackle? Can he tackle these guys? If they get the ball, 5 yards downfield, can he make a tackle? Can he tip a pass? Whatever. So I really think that if I'm Georgia, I'm like, that's the mismatch we're looking for is Chambers more than Eichenberg. Just like Alabama did a few years ago, against our linebackers, in the national championship game. Out of 50 plays, there may be 2 or 3, but if they're, if they go for 60, that's all it takes. So I really look to see if Steel Chambers can hold up to, this is a better level, of team than he's seen, his time at Ohio State so far.
Jeff, I'm going with another lineman on the other side of the ball. I'm not going outside to Tuimoloau or Harrison, even though I could give my own 2 minutes about what Tuimoloau's importance to this game.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going Mike Hall Jr. Now, this is just off of my gut. I believe he has been held back by the coaches this year. Number 51, I don't believe I understand I'm not going to say he hasn't been hurt. I'm not going to say his injury has not been of no significance. I'm not going to say that. I just think he could have played and probably should have played more than he did during the season. I'm only going to say that. I'm also going off my gut feeling that he's going to play a lot this game because the coaches know they need him to play this game.
Yeah.
And if you want to get Stetson Bennett off of his spot and allow him to get out of the pocket quicker than he wants to and mess up his rhythm and his timing, even though he can improvise better than you might think he can as a quarterback, Mike Hall Jr. with his interior play and pass rush and penetration back into the offensive backfield, I believe Mike Hall Jr. is going to be key and huge. Honestly, he could be you could bring in backups on defense. You could do one-on-one with Brock Bowers. You could double team him, whatever you want. You could zone, whatever you want to do on defense schematic-wise to combat how he is and how these receivers are going to get open and move the ball down the field. That's all great. That's all cute. It's going to get clicks. This game's going to be won in the trenches.
Yeah.
And if the Buckeyes have Mike Hall Jr. and Teron Vincent on the field, say 70 to 75% of the time together, yes, that's a lot of time. This is do or die time. You need to play your best players. And I do think Mike Hall Jr., number 51, my gut says he's healthy. My gut says he plays a lot. And that's going against everything the coaches have done all year. So maybe I'm being naive and not smart with my analysis. But Jeff, I believe, man, desperate times call for desperate measures. And if a guy's healthy enough to play, you got to play as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you too. That's something else I was thinking. And for Ohio State to have a reasonable chance in this game, they're going to need defensive linemen to create pressure and create havoc without bringing extra, because if they have to bring extras, then now you're losing people in coverage, and we see how that goes. They've got to be able to get pressure with 3 or 4 guys up front. Their linebackers have to be able to do what they do, tackle the guys, hold everybody short, keep the, try to get them to third down. It's like that. It's ridiculous to think that they're going to come into this game and like shut Georgia down. So they got to make them work for it. How do you do it? Just what you're saying, especially interior defensive line. If you can cause havoc up the middle, you can disrupt an offense for the entire game.
Yes, sir.
I totally agree with that. And that is definitely a guy that's like, if you tell me at the end Ohio State's going to the national championship game, I will tell you that Mike Hall had a great game.
Jeff Hunt, we're almost done with this show, and we'd save the best for last. We talk about game breakers, the importance of C.J. Stroud, game breakers, and just different things about this game. We discussed how Ohio State can win this game. Jeff, I'm only laughing because Jeff and I have talked about this pre-show. I made a comment, and Jeff said, Jay, I'm glad you and I are on the same page. And no, I didn't know where Jeff was going to go with this, but Jeff, this game does not look good for Ohio State. It does not. I don't know what else to say. You have a lot of your mouth on your mind right now, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, but this is not a good game, a good matchup, anything at all right now for the Buckeyes based off how the Ohio State played the 12 games this year.
I'll try to sum up what I said to Jay before the show. It breaks down like this. We can't watch as much football as we do, and then come to you, you great people listen to the show. I understand we're all Buckeye fans. We're all supportive. We try to give you, the optimistic view, everything. We did all we can do, but you wouldn't respect us if we came on here and was like, oh, we're going to blow out Georgia, end of story. So, yes, when I talk about it, this is just a bad matchup for Ohio State. I said that to Jay before the show. Everything that Georgia does good, is Ohio State's weakness. It goes back and forth. Do I think Ohio State deserves to be there? Absolutely. Do I think they can beat almost every team in the country? I do. Do I think I think they're on a special run right now, and it's just a terrible matchup for Ohio State? I do. If both these teams are healthy, both of them play to their best of the ability, I don't think Ohio State prevails. And it's just being honest. It hurts me as much as I'm rooting for them, as angry as I'll be, as upset as I am, as proud as I'll be of them. I couldn't sit here as a amateur analyst and tell you that I see a lot of realistic ways that Ohio State can win this game. But like Jay said before, I also don't see that they're, this vast underdog and they have no chance in the fight. We'll say Vegas has them at, I think it's 6.5 or 7, whatever it is right now. I would buy that. If you tell me Ohio State loses by a touchdown, I would be like, okay, that's fair. These are two good teams. Ohio State's just the problems that they've had this year, Georgia can expose, and that concerns me, deeply. Ohio State is probably one of the best playoff teams ever that had to drag themselves into the playoffs. Just nothing worked out right. We talked about it from, JSN getting hurt, week 1, and just all the stumbles, Henderson being out. So they limped into the playoffs, which credit to them. They found a way to do it. Georgia's just not on that same plane. I understand, they lost Smith, which is a huge loss, but when I looked, what kind of made me finally decide the other day, Jay, I was looking at a story and it said, I believe the number was something like Georgia has, I don't know, they have in the 15 plus 5-star recruits and then like 50 some 4-star recruits. They might be one of the most talented college football teams that we've ever seen right now. And it's just a tough matchup for our Buckeyes, even though I'm hoping for the best Saturday night.
I don't think people have really given Georgia the credit they should be giving Georgia. Most defending national champions that are undefeated the following year, that beat a Tennessee team, which I thought was going to put up a better fight against Georgia than they did. You're doing something in the conference that Nick Saban runs, and Kirby Smart, who used to work under Nick Saban, is like, whoa, hold on. We've been brewing this in Athens for a while. And let's not forget, before Kirby Smart got there and took over as head coach, Georgia was not a bad football program.
Like, no, they should have won a national championship. Like outside of one great throw from Tua.
Yes. Like this is not, they've been working on this, and they remind me of Clemson. Remember Taj Boyd? And yep. I'm not bringing up sore moments because I also saw a replay of that Orange Bowl. But I got to give Clemson credit. Dabo Swinney kept grinding, kept working, kept grinding, kept working, to the point that a 10-win season at Clemson is now a down year. When before Dabo got there, a 10-win season would have been amazing. Like, Georgia's been working at this. At the same time, Ohio State has talent. Ohio State has good coaches. For my biggest reason, one of my biggest reasons why I think Ohio State will not win this game is because the coaches consistently refuse to adjust at times when they need to adjust, and they don't put their players in the proper situations to be successful. That's one of my biggest knocks. Jeff and I can rip players left and right, up and down. We're not going to do that right now. But I just really think if everything is even on the playing field right now, Jeff, players-wise, I don't have the trust in these coaches like I want to believe 13-13, 3 minutes left. Ryan Day and those coaches, or Jim Knowles and those coaches, will dial up the right things for them to be successful. Now, some of you might say, Jay, it was a game against Penn State. Tuimoloau made some out-of-this-world plays. There was a game against Maryland. Yes, there were other games. Zach Harrison. The players have stepped up, but there were also times that we have seen these coaches not help these players be in the right position to be successful. I also think the players at Ohio State, I think losing Henderson is not as big of a deal. I think actually the Buckeyes running backs are going to be just fine in this game as far as ability and capability of moving the ball. But, man, I don't have a good feeling about this game, Jeff. I do not. My score prediction – go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'll give you mine first. I'll let Jay go second. I just want to say, like, one last thing on it. I'm not sitting here saying it's the end of the program or any of this that, like, we're getting carried away on. If you tell me 3 years ago, yes, Ohio State beats Georgia. Like they were at different levels. It's just this specific matchup. It's not the next 20 years of football. I'm saying this specific matchup just favors Georgia. That's all I'm saying. I got it. I think Georgia actually comes with the defense hard, doesn't try to show off, and I actually think they win like 31-13 is what I got it picked, because I think they just smother Ohio State and let them get out with some of their dignity. I know it's crazy to say, but it's just that's what my heart tells me. And I come on the Jay show, and I'm going to bring the truth. If I sit here and tell you that Ohio State's going to win by 50, y'all would never trust me again.
Yeah, that is true, Jeff. The game right now via our friends at BetOnline, Georgia is a 6.5-point favorite. The over/under is set at 63. Jeff, my score prediction, I said it earlier. I was on a show with Stu. I said it on there. I believe that came out on Thursday. I just said it yesterday in our crossover. 34 Georgia, 24 Ohio State. I think Ohio State will score multiple touchdowns. I think there's going to be a defensive turnover where Georgia's going to force Stroud to throw an interception, and I think that's going to be the downward spiral of the offense when that happens, because it's just going to get in his head. Here we go again, deja vu over and over and over. If we see a game where Stroud starts running, I don't think he has this ability, but does his own version of what Justin Fields is doing in the NFL, where he's running and utilizing his legs to move the ball. If he does that, but also can use his arm as well, that's a great way for Ohio State to win. The problem is we have not seen that, and I don't believe Ryan Day will coach a quarterback to do that. Even if Stroud wanted to do so, I think Ryan Day will say, no, stay in the pocket. No, stay back there. Stay behind the line of scrimmage. Use your arm. And that might be a knock one day. I don't know, but I also don't think Stroud has the capability or the desire to run the ball like that. And I'm not saying he's going to run the ball like Fields. Fields' running ability as a quarterback is one of a kind. It's literally one of a kind. But, yeah, man, I got a Buckeyes losing by 10. You have an 18-point loss for Ohio State. Yeah, it's not going to look good. And also, I do think, though, the trend we've seen in recruiting is players going elsewhere. Other like elite players, Alabama, Oregon, Miami, like elite players going elsewhere other than Columbus. And I think this could be a trend where Brian Day changes some things for the philosophy with recruiting and saying, oh, let me change some things up again. Those guys start flocking back to Columbus, Ohio to play football for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, the key is, the difference in recruiting, like when everyone is talking about, I know it's a big subject. Georgia just has a lot more football players, and Ohio State just doesn't seem to have, right now, just the mix of awareness and understanding of the game and all. These Georgia guys have just been through it all. Every big game they've showed up and looked great. If you want for every Missouri game you throw out, I can throw out the Northwestern game for Ohio State. So I'm not worried about. I don't worry about the outliers. I worry about when it's time to show up. Oregon, Tennessee, Florida. Georgia shows up. LSU and just puts it to bed. They've done it, and they've done it since the national championship game last year. I still say that they threw the SEC championship game last year. We'll never be able to, prove or disprove that. But all I know is what I saw them in the playoffs last year was not the same team that played Alabama in the SEC championship game. That being said, I'm 1,000% rooting for the Buckeyes. I hope that me and Jay can come on here and tell you how wrong we were and how excited we are to have a shot at the national championship come next week. More importantly, enjoy the game, everybody. Don't fret over too much, and have a great new year.
That's it. And Jeff, I'll come on here where Jay was right, where Jay was wrong. I will be the first to tell you if I was wrong with something. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Ohio State wins. I know Jeff hope Ohio State wins, but that's where we are right now. Jeff, you said it. Happy New Year to everybody a little bit earlier. We'll be back here live at the end of the game with our live post-game reaction, a little postcast action. Will probably be the first thing you listen to or watch in 2023 after the conclusion of this game. Jeff Hunt, Happy New Year to you. Also, can you let everyone know where they can follow you on Twitter? Because I know you'll be having all of the takes coming on Saturday leading up to this big game.
Yeah, if you could stand, as far as the current Twitter we know, it's still operating. I'm at jhunt006. I will be live tweeting. I will be commenting. I will tell you where I'm right. I will tell you where I'm wrong. It's a lot of fun. I'm not near as controlled or as professional as you'll get me on Jay's show. But if you want to have a little fun and you don't mind some R-rated humor, I'm your guy.
Professional, that's a good way to describe it. I try to keep everything family friendly on these public airways, either YouTube, the podcast, or even on the Bird app. Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. Send your emails to jstevens317@gmail.com. Once again, another reminder, Locked On Buckeyes postcast at the conclusion of the Peach Bowl. Ohio State, Georgia, for a chance to play for the national championship. It doesn't get much better than this. Jeff, we got to end the show with the best way we know how. OH?
IO, baby.